climate activists for Just Stop Oil have thrown tomato soup over Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers painting and superglued themselves to the wall at the National Gallery in London. In true 2022 style, it was filmed and put on social media, so let's take a look.
Security!
Security!
Why was there not a question mark on the subtitles? It's like, security, I guess.
It's the most unsure call for security that I think I've ever heard. I think it was Will from the In-Betweeners that was at the National Gallery that day. Security? Anyway, it's been confirmed that the painting was behind a protective glass, which apparently the activists knew, and it was unharmed, but there was minor damage caused to the frame, and so therefore the activists have been arrested and charged. Now, Curtis, Just Stop Oil have been up in the ante recently with their actions and targets, but people are growing increasingly irritated by them. What is your take?
Okay, honestly, like that video, some of the tactics of like Just Stop Oil and XR, I feel like they're like trying to deliberately piss people off. Like, I don't understand how that is going to potentially open up the debate and convince people.
Yeah.
Like, you're throwing... And she's like, oh, talk about wasting of food. Well, you just threw soup on
Is it worth more than food? Yeah.
But then you just wasted... Like, you could have given that soup to the homeless or a charity or food bank.
Yeah, but I think from their perspective, it's obviously they're wanting to create shock factor. Like, you heard the audible gasps on that clip. People were shocked. And for a lot of people, they don't know that there was a glass cover on it. That's a priceless piece of art. And I guess from their perspective, they're thinking, why are we putting such a high price on art that was created hundreds of years ago, and we're not putting the same price on our futures?
Oh, like, don't get me wrong, I completely understand why they're doing that.
Yeah.
That's fine. And these people mean well. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon that these are just idiots. Like, they mean well, and they're doing a hell of a lot more what other people are doing about the planet. But we do have to just take a second and look at some of the tactics, because some tactics are ridiculous. Like, if my reaction as someone who supports radically changing our energy policy, if I'm looking at that thinking, oh, that's so cringe, because a lot of the tactics are, then someone who isn't predisposed to supporting radical change, they're just gonna
someone who's not really interested in climate change, or maybe thinks it's a hoax, like a lot of these right-wing pundits seem to think, or they at least disagree with it. Yeah, when they see climate activists seemingly causing a nuisance, holding people up in the street and, you know, holding up traffic and whatever, that's just irritating. And they're just going to label all of these climate activists as annoying, what they call middle class, like...
Well, I mean,
vegans
just because,
that's annoying bloody vegans with their climate activism.
They're giving that aesthetic.
Yeah.
Like, a few years ago, it was XR, and they did a demonstration during peak time when people were trying to get to work on the London Underground, right? First of all, the London Underground public transport is the greenest way of getting to and from work, not stop people in cars. Why did they do that? It's working class people trying to get to and from work, and you're disrupting a public service such as the London Underground, which is the greenest way of doing it. Like, that exactly is the thing you shouldn't be doing, because you're supposed to be convincing working class people, especially. And I suppose that does give the aesthetic of middle class people just ranting and raving about it. So the tactics are crazy. What was it? The throwing shit on Sir Captain Moore? Tom Moore? You know, the veteran, and they threw shit on the...
Oh, what, the one that was doing the steps for the NHS?
Yeah, that guy. But there was like a...
Yeah, Captain Tom or Sir
statue
Tom or
of him, like a 2D statue. Then so want to stop. I think it might have been Just Stop Oil threw shit on it, which, by the way, was funny. It was funny.
I don't think that's funny.
It was funny
for charity.
It was funny in the sense that it was funny in the sense that it was just so ridiculous. But again, who's that going to convince? I mean, I don't care if it's offensive or not, because the right wingers are the true snowflakes here. If it's offensive, God, I don't care. It's more about whether it convinces people or not, and that is certainly not doing that.
Do you not think, though, that they would be more successful in their campaign if they were targeting like the head offices of some of these oil companies, or going to the oil rigs themselves, or I don't know, like obviously.
Yes, because there was was it XR? They did a campaign about the media ignoring climate change, and they went to, I think they stopped a couple of vans where they knew like the Sun newspaper, like there was like stocks of the Sun newspaper.
Right.
They stopped them. That is great because it hits the profits of these right-wing press media conglomerates because they couldn't sell their papers. That brought attention to it. That was bang on. And you know what? A lot of people are like, yeah, I support that.
Yeah.
Look, that's the tactics they should be doing. Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of like opinion these days across any sort of political spectrum is against big corporations, and I think if they were targeting those big corporations more, they would get more people on side. Targeting everyday people, although it's causing more disruption, so therefore maybe more coverage and whatever, I understand that tactic, but then you're causing more, you're getting people just more annoyed at you, and that's not adding, that's not gaining any more support to the cause. That's just irritating people.
Like, there's nothing more important than the planet, right? Even if there was no screen protecting the Van Gogh painting, even if it got destroyed, ultimately it doesn't fucking matter because the planet won't be here, or it'd be uninhabitable. So on that sense, like I look at that and I'm not offended by that or anything. Like, because when some of these people are like, oh my god, this is so ridiculous. Oh, this is art. Like, it doesn't matter. There will be no art without no humans. But having said that, I care about convincing people.
I think there probably would have, well, there obviously would have been more outrage had there not been a screen protector on the painting. Because I don't know if you remember, but I think it was in 2020 during the pandemic, or might have been just before, but the Notre Dame set on fire.
Yeah.
And there was millions raised for it in a matter of days, like celebrities and Parisians, people across the world that have a love and affiliation for this historic building, managed to raise millions of euros, pounds, whatever it was, I don't know. And at the same time, or shortly after, I think it was when there was the Australian bushfires, and like hundreds of thousands of acres of land were burnt down, hundreds of animals were killed or displaced, people were displaced, and that obviously, was also, people were donating, but it wasn't as quick, it wasn't as fast, there was less of a rush, or it was really saddening to see. But I think it just kind of highlights that disassociation with like the planet and with bricks and mortar. Or do you get what I'm trying to say?
Well, I suppose like that's just an emotion thing, isn't it? Like if someone destroyed your personal property, you'd be more annoyed than.
But that wasn't anyone's personal property.
No, I know it wasn't, but I'm just trying to like understand why people got more angry at one thing, even though ultimately the bigger picture, it doesn't matter. Like the most important thing is climate change, but it doesn't necessarily mean that people care about climate change. But.
Yeah, true. In contrast, there was a story that I only recently heard about, which was a climate activist setting himself on fire back in April on the steps of the Supreme Court in America. And I don't remember seeing anything about it.
I don't. I didn't
hear anything about it
until we researched into it.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
And obviously, it was in a different country, but a lot of news from different countries spreads. We've got social media. I didn't see anything about it at the time, and it's interesting to acknowledge that when it comes to media coverage, they're quite happy to frequently cover the likes of Just Stop or Extinction Rebellion, which obviously is for a good cause, but it causes a lot of annoyance to people, and by continually reporting on it adds to that annoyance, it adds fuel to that kind of fire. But then they're not going to cover more extreme forms of protest that actually would have more shock and impact. Somebody killed themselves essentially in the fight for climate activism. That's unbelievable. Like that should be reported, you know what I mean? And I think there also was a protest of scientists earlier this year that wasn't really covered. So, I mean, the media showing quite clear intentions there, I feel.
Yeah, so this is by design. Why would the media cover something like that where a man took his own life in, trying to bring awareness about climate change? It's because if that was reported, people will be taking it a lot more seriously, and pundits in the media will be taking it seriously. Right now, it's very fashionable to report on people like Just Oil throwing soup on paintings or poo on Thomas
Graves.
Not graves, but statues.
Oh, right.
It's a fashion to do it because then you can bring in all the pundits saying, oh, look at these idiots, right? And guess what? Nothing changes. No policy changes. But if they were to report on someone killing themselves, no pundits can make light of that situation. And when you can't make light of the situation, the discussion then goes on to the matter at hand, which is climate change. So
That's
there's
such
a
a good
reason
point.
for that. It's like the media are sat behind a glass, which is quite funny. What we're talking about, the painting. Sat behind like a glass, and they're like sort of allowing these stupid little discussions to unfold. You know, this activist is an idiot. This activist is good, whatever. But the media isn't staying out of the debate and allowing, you know, a free flowing conversation. They're deliberately manipulating the debate because they choose not to cover such important stories like that. And that is incredibly important. You know, having the guts to set yourself on fire, that's horrific, and it shouldn't have to happen. But that's something that should be covered everywhere. That should have wall-to-wall coverage, more than tactics of just stop oil. But again, like I said, it is a very deliberate thing to do, and that happens in a lot of political issues, a lot of the time, because it's almost, in a way, like a capitalist sort of realism sense, that it's a form of entertainment in itself. That we tune in and we can't wait to see our favourite pundit, can't wait to see Piers Morgan, you know, rip these middle class idiots to shreds for doing stupid tactics, and that has become an entertainment segment in itself, which is crazy, and it's kind of part of capitalism working there. So yeah, it's very deliberate and it's worrying, and these are the things that should be covered by the media.
It's giving Don't Look Up vibes again. You know, like that when those scientists first went on the news show thing, and one of them turned into like a meme or something that went all around the internet, and they didn't really, and like that was spread because it was funny, but the actual like message that they were sending not spoke about.
That this is a way in which capitalism is so it can mold itself in so many different things to preserve itself, where before a lot of companies that knew they were polluting the planet were hiding those facts. They were, you know, spending money to try and shelve this bits of data and information in which the impacts of these big oil companies are having to the planet. Then it gets to the point that we can no longer ignore that what we're doing to the planet. We can no longer ignore that, right? So how does capitalism then preserve itself? Because capitalism is causing environmental damage, is causing climate change. And now that we acknowledge it, what can we do? And then this is where capitalism comes back and does things such as greenwashing, where Amazon are fully supporting protecting the planet, although they're saying, like, what can you particularly do, rather than a big industrial strategy. And again, this is another way of like capitalism preserving itself, which is no longer ignoring the issue of climate change, engaging with climate change, but very cleverly molding the debate in a certain way in which we are acknowledging climate change without tackling the root cause of it. So yeah, everyone's aware of climate change now, but materially that's made no difference because nothing's been done about it. You would think that because everyone's woken up to the idea that we are destroying our own planet, that we should do something about it. Well, guess what? Now we've got new segments where we're just blaming those who are trying to do something about it, even though I think some of the tactics are wrong. We're mocking them, and capitalism is preserving itself by doing that.